So being able to recognize when you're feeling fearful or greedy or overly excited or frustrated.
Exactly. Those are the emotions that can lead to bad decisions.
So the first step is just noticing those feelings.
And then it's about managing those emotions, not letting them control your actions.
So you can stay calm and rational even when the market is doing crazy things.
Right. It's about maintaining a balanced perspective.
And the material we've been looking at talks about some of the common emotional traps that traders fall into.
Those classic pitfalls.
Let's start with FOMO, fear of missing out. We touched on this earlier, but how does it typically show up for individual traders and why can it be so dangerous?
Well, imagine you see an asset that's just been skyrocketing in price.
Okay.
And everyone's talking about it. And you start to feel like you're the only one who's not in on the action.
That feeling of being left behind.
Exactly. And that can trigger a powerful urge to buy right now before you miss out on any more gains.
Even if you haven't really done your research.
And that's the danger. You might end up buying at the very peak of the hype just before the price starts to drop.
Ouch. So it's like buying a plane ticket right before the prices go down.
Exactly. FOMO can make you pay a premium for something that's about to go on sale.
And then there's FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
The other side of the coin.
How does that typically play out?
Well, FUD usually pops up during market downturns or when there's a lot of uncertainty about the future.
When things are looking a little shaky.
Exactly. And as prices start to fall, the fear of losing money can become overwhelming.
And that can lead to panic selling.
Right. People start dumping their assets, even if those assets are still fundamentally sound.
Because they're just so afraid of losing everything.
And the problem is you often end up selling at the very bottom, locking in those losses and potentially missing out on a rebound.
It's like selling your house during a temporary dip in the market only to see prices go back up a few months later.
Exactly. FUD can make you act irrationally and make decisions that aren't in your best interest.
Okay, so we've got FOMO and FUD, and then the third emotional trap is overconfidence.
Ah, yes, that one can be sneaky.
Because confidence is usually seen as a good thing.
It is, in many areas of life.
But in trading,
It can lead to some serious problems.
how so?
Well, let's say you've had a string of successful trades.
Okay, you're feeling good.
You might start to think that you've cracked the code, that you have some kind of special insight into the market.
And that can be dangerous.
It can lead to taking on too much risk, over-leveraging your positions, or ignoring warning signs that things might be about to change.
You get a little too cocky.
And that's when you're most vulnerable to a big setback.
Because you're not prepared for the possibility that you might be wrong.
Exactly. Maintaining humility and a healthy dose of skepticism is essential for long-term success in trading.
So we've talked about these emotional pitfalls, but how do we actually cultivate emotional resilience? How do we become more aware of and in control of our emotions?
Well, the sources offer some practical strategies.
Let's hear them.
First, they suggest incorporating mindfulness practices into your routine.
Mindfulness like meditation and stuff.
Exactly, things like meditation, journaling, or even just taking a few minutes each day to focus on your breath.
And how does that help with trading?
Well, it helps you become more aware of your emotions in real time.
So you can catch those feelings of anxiety or excitement or fear as they're happening.
Exactly, and that creates a crucial pause between your emotional response and your actions.
So you don't just react impulsively.
Right, you have a chance to observe your feelings without letting them dictate your decisions.
I like that. Okay, what else?
The second strategy is setting clear boundaries.
What does that mean?
It means defining your risk tolerance. How much money are you willing to lose on any given trade?
Okay.
And then establishing strict stop-loss orders and profit targets.
So you're not just winging it.
Exactly. By setting those limits ahead of time,